You are watching Apostolic Radio Charlotte.
Seated. If you haven't turned your cell phone off yet, this would be a great time to do that. I hope the Lord's been with all of you this week. I hope you've had a great week. We are a blessed people. We are occasionally guilty of being an ungrateful people. We are occasionally guilty of not exercising the discipline of thanksgiving and worship in our life the way we should. But usually, if you have good influences in your life, somebody will say something, you'll hear something, something will catch you, and you will remind yourself of just how blessed you really are. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me. We are truly a blessed people. God, forgive us for living in any manner less than true thanksgiving, because God has been good to us. In our life class today, I want to take just a few minutes and talk to you about something that I oftentimes think to myself when I see people act in particular ways and see people do damage in their life through particular excesses. And I think about it a lot, and I occasionally reference it in our teaching in this class. But today I want to put a highlight on it, and my title for this lesson today will be this: Schoolyard Lessons, Lifetime Tests. Schoolyard Lessons, Lifetime Test. One of our pastors preached a great message years ago entitled, "Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Sunday School." And it was a takeoff of that quite popular book, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. But it was just a spiritual application of the same idea. I was reading a lady who is quite influential in the homeschooling world. And she was talking to parents, and she has a blog where she teaches parents and encourages parents who are involved in homeschooling. And her goal was, in this particular article that she had written, her goal was to remind these parents who are trying to teach their children, homeschool their children, that school is more than technical knowledge. School is more than whether or not you have your 3 R's. School is more than simply learning how to, deal with a quadratic equation, say. In fact, the larger part of school is about developing into a functional and healthy adult. And by healthy, I don't mean the state of your arteries. I mean the state of your mind. And she pointed out that there are 3 lessons that middle schoolers have to learn. And if they do not learn these 3 lessons, they are unprepared for anything that is next in their life. And she was reminding parents that while they are learning their basic algebra, and while they are going over American history and dealing with the insights of the courses they are taking, there are 3 fundamental lessons that they have to learn. The first one is they have to learn self-control. In kindergarten, if a child flips out, so to speak, totally loses all control, or even in elementary school, no one, they get the lecture, they get but they're young, they don't know how to process their inner world. No one sees that as a kind of like they're not a flawed kid, so to speak, if they cannot control their emotions in the youth, in kindergarten through elementary. But in middle school, if they still have the same inability to control their inner world, to control their emotions, it is more than just a kid who is growing up. It is a sign of a larger problem that they have to learn, or they're, sad to say, going to end up in prison. That's a terrible thing to say, and it's a terrible thing to to believe about anybody, but it is a sad reality that in middle school, you've got to get your ability to control your emotions together. Secondly, they have to learn the art of organizing themselves. If they don't learn this in middle school, it's more than just they're growing up. It literally starts to become a problem for the rest of their life. And the last lesson that she had was absolutely fundamental in middle school, was they had to learn the ability to motivate themselves. So it's real simple: self-control, organization, self-organization, and self-motivation. And her intent in teaching these children, or teaching these parents, I should say, was that while you are going over basic algebra, you got to see a bigger picture. And you have to see that this is the challenge in these kids' lives. They are trying to turn into healthy adults who kind of have a clue about how things work. They're trying to make the leap between being just a kid and being an adult. They have to learn these things: self-control, self-organization, and self-motivation. Parents are good at organizing their kids, but at some point they have to make the transition to organizing themselves. Parents are good at motivating their children, but at some point the children have to make the switch to motivating themselves. I apologize for my voice this morning. It's going to be one of those days, I can tell. So forgive me. Point being, if you look at people who have had difficulty getting their selves sorted out, if you look at people who are stuck in a repetitive pattern where their life is some definition of a disaster. Now, I'm not just talking about the fact that all of us could be a little better motivated. I'm not just talking about the fact that all of us could be a little better organized. That is true. That's like saying I could pray more. Well, yeah. I'm talking about where there is not even a foundation of these disciplines. And when people have this in their life, when they have an inability to control themselves, they have an inability to organize themselves, and they have an inability to motivate themselves, what you see is a repetitive pattern of setback, disappointment, failure, trouble, clashes with the law, repeated lost jobs, repeated changes of plans. And in many cases, it's sad because these people in their early years had no parent to teach them this, and they had no school system to emphasize this. And so a lot of the current troubles of our society that you would think of as a social challenge, a social problem, are a direct result of failed middle school years. So let's look at our lives and let's ask ourselves how we could look back to the lessons we were supposed to learn in a middle school play yard, but because we haven't paid particular attention, and because we have not challenged ourselves to do better and climb higher and see farther, because of that, we have, as it were, made our journey harder and more difficult. Let me start with self-control. I am a big believer in an idea that is known as the Hippocratic Oath, and that is basically this. Doctors, as they are going through the process to receive their license and their literally to become a doctor, they have to make an individual oath. They take an oath in that the first principle is we will not do harm. First, we do no harm. So the doctor in training knows many types of treatments, many types of procedures. But the oath is, if a person is sick, you will not do them harm to make them sicker. The patient must have priority. And I have found myself talking with a lot of people who are going through challenges in their life. It's one of the jobs and duties of leadership, spiritual leadership, to work with people who are in challenges of their life. And they are dealing with be it career challenges or relationship challenges, raising children, staying married, etc., all the challenges of our lives. I often find myself in a listening mode where I'm just listening to this story that goes on where this happened and then that happened and then I got mad and then she got angry and then that's when I punched the wall and then all of this. It's interesting that this is a very human and very common repetitive story. And my first goal in a troubled situation, whether it is relationships, whether it is like a marriage or a parenting type thing, whether it is a career situation, my first goal is, can we get everyone to agree to stop making it worse? If you can sit with someone and you can identify the top 2 or 3 things that are trigger points, and you can get them all to make a commitment that they will just stop doing these 2 or 3 things. I'll give you some examples. I've dealt with circumstances where someone would lose their temper on a regular basis. To them, it was a form of communication. It was a form of self-expression. And they would lose their temper. And because their daddy did it, or their mama did it, and because their grandpa did it, or their grandma did it, they thought that's just how you're supposed to communicate with somebody. And so they would, on a regular basis, as an act of personality expression, they would lose their temper. They would call names. You're just the biggest idiot I have ever seen in the history of the world. They would denigrate. They would attack each other. They are actively trying to hurt each other. And let me tell you a little rule of thumb for anybody who's trying to help anybody else. If you cannot get the people involved to at least agree to stop making the problem worse, you are wasting their time and they are wasting your time. Is that fair? I don't mean to be harsh. I don't mean to be ugly. But if you cannot, I'm telling you, in every circumstance, whether it's going through the troubled parenting years of teenagers when their hormones are going crazy, whether it's the challenges of marriage, whether or not it's dealing with difficult career frictions and personality conflicts, if you cannot get the people to agree, I'm going to stop hurting you. I'm going to stop insulting you. I'm going to stop calling you names. Everybody involved is wasting their time. It's just a big waste of time. And it is astonishingly hard for people who have learned a rut of a communication style, a way of expressing their anger, a way of dealing with something. It is hard for them to get them to admit that they have a problem. They will find a way to project it onto someone else. They'll say, well, he made me mad. Or she made me angry, as though the other person. The point is worth repeating, as I have done 3 times now. First, we have to start with controlling ourselves. If we cannot control ourselves, it is a logical fallacy for us to expect anyone else to have self-control. But if we can start with controlling ourselves, there is a chance that we can influence others. And if nothing else, begin to show a better testimony when we claim to be Christians. Can I have a big amen? There's a Bible study I went over recently, and there's several things here I want to share with you that are, let's call them like gauges on your dashboard. And you can look at these gauges on your dashboard and you can kind of see what the temperature is and how well things are going on under the hood. Number one, people who have self-control are the master of their moods. Their moods do not master them. They master their moods. So we can look at that gauge and we can ask ourselves, how well are we managing our moods, or how well are our moods managing us? The second gauge on your dashboard is people with self-control speak carefully. If we are not speaking carefully, that gauge is telling you what's going on under the hood of your life. And you should not be you should not celebrate your self-control if you are not speaking carefully, particularly about circumstances and subjects involving other people where things can be misunderstood and hurts can come. And so, number one, are we mastering our moods? Number two, are we speaking carefully? Number three, people with self-control, they master their emotions and their reactions, as opposed to having moments of uncontrollable emotional reaction. If you flip out, you should not celebrate a whole lot of self-control in your life, because that is a gauge telling you that you are needing work in self-control. Number four, people with self-control usually have a schedule that they use as a principle of efficiency in their life. They use it as a method to get things done. If you cannot stick to anybody's schedule, it is a gauge on the dashboard of your life saying you need to work on your self-control. Can I have an amen? Finally, no, I have two more. People with self-control manage their money. If you're not managing your money, it's a gauge on your dashboard telling you you need to get your act together. What? Amen. I didn't get an amen even from the people taking the financial class, or Brother Jonathan. I said, at least get some amens from over here. You know what I'm saying? And finally, and this is going to strike home to all of us, people with self-control manage their health. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm moving right along. Every one of these things I've mentioned have scriptural references. They master their moods. Remember the wise man saying in Proverbs 25, a person without self-control is like a city with broken down walls. People with self-control speak carefully. Remember Proverbs 13. Be careful what you say and protect your life. A careless talker destroys himself. Restraining your emotions and your reactions. Remember Proverbs 19. If you are sensible, you will control your temper. When someone wrongs you, it is a great virtue to ignore it. Amen. Proverbs 19 and 11. People with self-control, they tend to have a schedule, and they tend to stick with it. Ephesians 5. Chapter number 5, starting at verse 15. Be very careful then how you live, not as the unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. People with self-control manage their money. Proverbs 21. In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all that he has. And self-control, in terms of our health, in terms of how we eat and how we manage our health. 1 Thessalonians, chapter number 4, I'll read one of the modern versions. Learn to appreciate and give dignity to your body. It's stated differently in different translations, but I liked that one. I thought it'd make us hear it with fresh ears. And so, willpower, self-control, these are not just schoolyard lessons, they are lifetime tests. And the Lord help us to do a good job with them. Amen? The first one is self-control. The second area that I was referring you to earlier was this issue of organizing yourself mentally, organizing your life, organizing your projects, organizing your ministry involvements. This is very, very important. And to give you a spiritual overlay, I want to remind you of how Luke described Jesus growing from child to young adult to adult, where he wrote in chapter number 52, verse number 52 of chapter number 2, and you guys will recognize this the moment I say it. And Jesus increased in wisdom, somebody say wisdom, stature, in favor with God, and in favor with man. 4 areas where we must, of necessity, organize ourselves. These are areas of personal individual growth. So, mental organization, that's wisdom. We think of it that way. It's not necessarily the first way we think of it, but the physical is stature, increased in stature. And the spiritual is in favor with God. And the social is in favor with men. These are kind of the 4 great arenas of development and growth that we have. And so, first of all, we need to think about our ability to organize ourselves in this sphere of the mental and the mind. Your mind is it's either like a vault or it's like a trash can. It just depends on what you put in it. If you put enough junk in it, it turns into a trash can. If you wonder what that's like, go behind a grocery store and smell the dumpsters. That's just a bunch of rotten stuff going in there. On the other hand, go to a high-end bank and ask to visit the vault. Very different experiences. I want my mind to be more like a vault where I fill it with valuable things. And then like a dumpster behind a grocery store, filling it full of rotten, thrown out things. And so it very much is a choice we make. You say, what do you mean by a choice? Well, like it or not, we control what we read. We control what we use to entertain ourselves. We control what we watch. We control what we listen to. We control what's going in our brain. And you won't get to blame St. Peter for that. I won't get to blame St. Peter for that. That is very much the expression of the person I want to be. What we fill our brains with is an expression. It's our expression. It's expression of our creativity, of the person we want to be. In this area of stature, this area of organizing ourselves, I think it is a very healthy thing for us to be the master of our lusts. And when we talk about lust, we're not just talking about walking past the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition men. What, you didn't think I'd say that? No, let's pretend like that isn't out there. I'm not just talking about thinking about in terms of attractiveness or that kind of a thing. I'm talking about where we have disciplines in our life. And as a general rule, what do you think fasting is? Fasting is an expression of the discipline in a physical realm, our bodies, that has an expression in the whole of the rest of our life, and the spiritual particularly. And so we should try to organize ourselves there. We should try to live as a person with discipline. I found I have my way of doing that. You have your way of doing that. The important thing is that we actually take it serious enough not to just live a life of pursuing whatever our lusts are. And that's the broad range of human lusts. But we have some sort of regular discipline in our life. The third arena is this issue of the spiritual, organizing ourselves in terms of our spiritual walk with God. It's amazing how easy it is to fall off of our spiritual disciplines. It's amazing how easy it is to pray pretty good for a while and then miss 2 months just out of nowhere. And you wake up, you don't know what happened to those 2 months, but boom, they're gone. This is very much a discipline. It is very much the effort of organizing yourself in these areas. We need to be students of the Word. Amen? Some of that's coming to church. I try to do as good a job as I can do in instructing. But some of that's coming to church, and some of that is upon us. And I would encourage every one of us to get organized when it comes to our personal devotion. It should not be, the more you value something, the more serious you take it. The more serious you take it, the more organized you are in regards to it. And so it is with our spiritual walk with God. And finally, this issue of organizing ourselves in terms of our social world. Jesus grew in favor of God and he grew in favor of men. Believe it or not, we can organize ourselves relative to our social world. Friendships take effort. They do. They take effort. You have to value your friends. Relationships with fellow believers, they take effort. They take time. It's easy to live the life of a kind of the nomadic life where you have no real connections. I just want to remind you. I mean, obviously you can do that, but there's a lot of richness in life that comes from taking time to get to know somebody, taking time to fellowship with your brothers and sisters. Can I have an amen? Taking time to encourage someone else. As a general rule of thumb, whatever you need in your own heart, if you want it, you will get it by giving it away. If you need love, you need to find a way to give it away, and you will find yourself rich in love. If you need encouragement, you need to find a way to give it away. You need to encourage everybody you meet, and you will find yourself rich in encouragement. If you need acts of kindness or generosity in your life, you need to find a way to give them away. Because the principle of the spirit realm is completely different than the principle of a zero-sum natural world where when you have something, it's because you took it from someone else. There is no shortage in God's economy. And if you do not hide it, you attract it. Does that make sense? It's as though there is a law of attraction in the spirit world. And if you need compliments, you need to give them away. If you need someone to call you randomly and tell you how much they appreciate you, you need to give it away. You need to call somebody else and tell them randomly how much they appreciate you. Because let me tell you how to push it all away. Never let it flow through you, and it won't come to you. So these issues of social organization, I want to encourage all of you to look for relationships with your brothers and sisters, to look for ways to encourage one another, to look for fellowship opportunities. Yeah, you can sit at home on the internet, but let me tell you, life is better with friends than it is. Wow, okay. My Sunday check of the time and instant feeling of, oh my goodness. So I'm going to finish in 4 minutes, or I'm not. We'll see. The final area that you were supposed to get it. You were supposed to get it as a young person, as it were, in the schoolyard. And if you haven't got it, it causes trouble through the whole of the rest of your life. And that is this issue of being self-motivated. Number 1, remember, was self-control. Number 2 was self-organized. And number 3 is self-motivated. These are hugely important issues because there comes a point where your parents are no longer, as you guys know, there to tell you to do something, to take action, to get motivated. You have to motivate yourself. First comes discipline. Later on comes self-discipline. And the way the world is structured is the person who does not have self-discipline will have it given to them by society. And that's how people end up locked in a room with nothing to do for years at a time. It's because they had no self-discipline. And so society said, okay, well, we'll take care of that for you since it's obviously beyond your ability to do it, and we'll discipline you. So discipline is the base, but there comes a point where you have to take responsibility for your own motivation. And so this can be challenging because we are often prisoners of our moods. Some of you guys, I love you dearly, I admire you in many ways, but I see you in the grip of your moods. I can see, you got to remember, I look at you 2 days every week, and I can see you in the house of the Lord. And sometimes it helps me pray for you because I get where I can read your body language. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I can see you in the grip of your moods, and you're going through a tough time. It's like you are in this mood prison. And I don't want to be condescending, because the truth is I can do the same thing. And so I don't come by and try to like straighten you out or anything, because, you know, I can have the same situation. But the Lord help all of us not to be in the prison of our moods. Lord, help all of us to master those moods and control them. And if we lose motivation in an area because we're not in the mood, Lord, help us not to just surrender that and say, well, that's just the way life goes. No, that's not the way life goes. That's the way you go. There are people out there who will not live that way. And they will say, no, they are their own encourager. They are their own drill sergeant. They are their own force. And these tend to be highly effective people who get a lot done. And you say, well, how can I become that? Well, first advice is you need to ask yourself if you have any friends who are good at motivating themselves. If you don't, you need to go make some. Because let me tell you, one of the best ways to get better at something is have some friends in your life who have that together. So you have an area in your life that's a mess. You need to go find someone and and you say, well, I don't know how to become their friends. Well, ask them for help first, and then maybe good things will happen. Who knows? Maybe they'll mentor you. A lot of good things can happen, but we cannot just be settled with this acceptance, this kind of passive acceptance. I don't believe it's the will of the Lord for us to live like a fatalist. Right. Whatever will be, will be. Well, why did God put the church here on the earth to fight against darkness every day? Because God doesn't want things that will be just to be. So let me give you a few ideas on self-motivation, and I'm going to quit. These are just a few things, and some of them are fun. But if you're struggling to get motivated, why don't you start by changing your attitude? Attitude is a result of how you view the world and your self-talk. That's what your attitude is. It's the result of how you view the world and your self-talk. So, I'll give you an example. Let's pick something fairly safe like exercise. Okay? If you view the world like exercise is misery, and you tell yourself all day long, oh, I got to do this, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Guess what? You have no motivation. But if you will change your attitude and change your self-talk, just an idea. Go ahead and ignore me. You've been doing it for years. Number 2, if you need some motivation, start with changing your energy level. Change your energy level. Believe it or not, you can do it with a decision. The mind should master the body, not the body master the mind. Change your energy level. And so, you get up in the morning, you get sprawled out in your chair, you get your blanket just right, you get your cup of coffee right there, you get your paper all spread out. Let me tell you, you are so chill. Change your energy level. You say, I don't know how to do it. Oh, come on. I'm not going to explain that. Number 2, ideas to help with motivation. You mock your own excuses. You do it. You're used to other people doing it. Oh, I just don't feel good. You mock your own excuses. You do it. You'll start feeling absurd. I was going to work out today, but I had a little bit of trouble at work. That's your excuse. You mock it. Oh, I'm the kind of person, I just fall apart if there's a little bit of trouble at work. And I can't work out anymore because I had a little bit of trouble at work. You mock your own excuses. Or if you can't call me, give me your excuse, I'll mock it for you. Man, I'm not working out. I didn't sleep good last night. That's what you tell me. I'm like, I'm just the kind of person that if everything doesn't go perfectly, I fall apart. That's just how I am. And I need 8 hours of sleep. And if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I can't do anything. If you will mock your own excuses, I promise you. Next, turn on some loud music. Any of you guys have XM radio and you can listen to that Enlighten gospel station? It's all like hymns sung in 4-part harmony. Here we gather at the river to worship the Lord. Worship the Lord. If you can't sleep, you should turn on that station. You will go immediately into a deep, deep, deep. Turn on some music. If you're struggling with motivations, make a list. Lists are very powerful tools. Make a list. Make why you should do it. Make a blessings list. Make a values list. Just make a list. It might help. Finally, and this is my favorite, believe it or not, I do this. If you're struggling with motivation, call a friend and ask them to tell you off. It works. So you call your friend who does good on this. So let's say you have a friend who's very organized with their money, and you have never passed the mall without your wallet jumping out, slapping you on both sides of your face. So when you're trying to do better on this, you call your friend who you know has this under control, and just ask them to tell you off. Say, I just can't get you. Just right now, you need to tell me off. And they're like, you know what? They sound like a drill sergeant. You disgust me. I'm going to tell you right now, it is pathetic how the only way you can make yourself feel better is to go to the mall and spend $100, as if you had another $100 to spend. You should be ashamed of yourself. They're your friend. They love you. They're telling you off. It's a beautiful experience. I do this. Do you feel better now? Well, let me see. Tomorrow you should go spend another $100 because that's the solution to happiness. And your dear friend who loves you tells you off real good. It's amazing how it motivates you. And you'll find yourself, oh, okay, that's enough. That one hurt. Let's all stand. All right, smile at your neighbor. Say, man, you needed this today. I'm going to start a worship service here in just a few minutes. God bless you.
Thank you for watching Apostolic Radio Charlotte. Come, worship with us.